Okay, once I start presenting, guys, if I can just ask one of you, I don't mind who was first in here, Luzandi. Luzandi, if you can just give me a yes um, if I'm presenting
Okay, perfect.
the work. Okay,
Perfect,
so
sir.
you should. Can you see it? Is it
It's loading.
presenting?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, cool. All right, guys. So this is where we ended off yesterday, if you remember, when we spoke about reasons for conflict or things that cause conflict. We're talking about, if you remember, one of the biggest things actually with conflict and that causes conflict is change. It is one of the biggest things, and that's a worldwide issue. And South Africa, the next biggest thing would be because of the cultural diversity in this country. Okay, so just recap on that. You need to make sure that you do know that for your exams and for final exams. It does come up very often. So moving on to that, inner conflict. You should know what inner conflict is. The fact that inner conflict is something that's within you. It's something that drives conflict that you have personally within yourself. It's not necessarily something that's caused by other people. So one of the issues with inner conflict, or one of the things that can lead to inner conflict, would be jealousy. So if somebody gets a promotion and you don't, or if somebody gets to do a particular job in the workplace and you would prefer to have done that, that is jealousy, and that's inner conflict. That's something that you have an issue with, not necessarily the other person. Feelings of inferiority, that is boils down to you feeling that you are not good enough or you're not as good as somebody else, and that can drive inner conflict as well. The need to impress or control a situation, that can lead to inner conflict. Your personal morals and beliefs and ethics, that came up in the previous slide that we dealt with, and then oversensitivity and low self-esteem. So if you are affected very easily um, by things that happen, or if you have very low opinion of yourself, again, that is something that causes inner conflict. And how do you resolve inner conflict? So how do you deal with that conflict that you have within yourself? Firstly, you need to identify. This sounds a little bit like uh, an Alcoholics Anonymous thing. You've got to identify that there is inner conflict. So you need to accept that you have inner conflict. And from there, you refer the person to the correct department or a counselor. So if you're the head of um, a department and a business and you see that somebody has inner conflict, you need to identify that there is inner conflict, and you then need to put that person in touch with the right person that can help them deal with that conflict. And a lot of times in business, that would be a department manager or the counselor. We've got that at school. So if there's inner conflict at school and you have any conflict at school, you deal with the correct person. So with you, it would be me or Mr. Van Merwe as your great tutors, and then we refer you on to your counselor. That's an example of that inner conflict issue. And then the extent of assistance depends on the severity of the problem. So the more severe the inner conflict, the more important it is to direct you to a higher authority. If it's something that can be dealt with by a particular subject teacher, then that can be dealt with. If it's something that's a little bit more serious, then it'll go to great tutors. If it's something that is potentially life-threatening or is causing major issues in your life, that's where the counselor will generally step in. So depending on the severity, you'll escalate it to the next highest person that deals with those issues. And management skills to deal with conflict. Management deals with conflict. All levels of management need to deal with conflict. So right from the floor supervisor at the petrol station, so the forecourt supervisor, all the way up to management and the owner of the petrol station, they all need to be able to deal with conflict within the workplace. And tolerance regarding inclusivity and cultural diversity. You need to always be aware, as a manager or a supervisor, you need to always be aware of stereotyping within the workplace. So don't think that one petrol attendant is going to deal with something in the same way. Or don't think that one petrol attendant, because it is a male or female, don't automatically assume that all males or all female petrol attendants are going to deal with something the same way. Okay. Communication skills, everybody needs to have skills to be able to deal with conflict. And communication skills comes down to how you communicate when you're meeting somebody face to face. So if there is a conflict situation and you're dealing with that conflict situation, the communication skills I'm referring to really are things like the way that you speak, the way that you address somebody, the tone you use when you speak, the use of hands, the eye contact. I addressed eye contact when we spoke about cultural diversity yesterday, how that can lead to conflict. So all of that ties in hand. So communication skills, vitally important when you're dealing with conflict. The ability to act and think strategically. If you cannot think or act strategically, you're not going to be able to deal with conflict efficiently. If you need to deal with conflict, you need to think about the situation. Very often, and somebody asked the question yesterday, what would you actually do if a situation becomes dysfunctional? And what I said is separate the two. And when you separate the two and you speak to each of the two parties individually, you're having an opportunity there for yourself to actually think about the whole process and what is going on and to actually internalize it. And by doing that, you're able to think critically about the situation and address it a little bit more efficiently, actually, rather than on the spot trying to deal with something. If you try and deal with something on the spot, you're forcing yourself to think on your feet, which is not always the best thing. And then emotional intelligence to deal with different personalities and emotions. I'm assuming you know what emotional intelligence is. You're able to read someone, you're able to read their personality and the emotions they're going through, and using that to help you to deal with that conflict situation. Okay. Then outcomes of conflict. Conflict can either be positive or negative. There can be a positive solution to conflict or a negative solution to conflict. So with a positive solution to conflict, we're helping to create an awareness of a problem that when it's addressed will benefit the business. So if there is a problem, if you address that problem and you address it efficiently, you can end up having a better solution in business. You might have a business that operates a little bit better. It can stimulate creativity, enables people to learn from one another, leads to collaboration, and focuses the focus shifts to working as a team. So when people learn to deal with issues or deal with conflict in a positive way and see the benefits to sorting out conflict effectively, they'll learn to work as a team a little bit better. It also motivates people to give input in new ideas. So if they see that conflict is dealt with efficiently, they might be more willing to give their input, to give their ideas, and not be scared of what they have to say that might be laughed at or ridiculed. If you're in a situation like that where staff are feeling a little bit more comfortable, they're going to have a little bit more input, and it's only going to have a better solution to problems. Negative issues of conflict is it's going to hamper productivity. It's going to slow down and limit productivity within the business. Because if you don't manage the conflict and you let it get out of hand, people are not going to be willing to work as hard. They're going to be thinking about the conflict that took place, and they're not necessarily going to be thinking about their work. They might make mistakes, etc. So that conflict can have a big negative impact if it is not addressed properly. It can lower staff morale, as I've said, can lead to inappropriate behavior of staff and management in that light as well. So if your conflict is not sorted out, the negative aspect is that people can behave inappropriately. For example, a petrol attendant, if the conflict is not sorted out, he might act up in order to try and get a reaction. He might go the extra mile to do something different, not focusing on his work, in order to get a reaction out of other staff members. And that's not necessarily what you want. And it can cause confusion and frustration amongst staff. So if conflict is not sorted, people don't really know what the outcome is. People are going to get frustrated. They're not going to know what they should be doing. And that is a negative outcome. I'm guessing that you realize that if people are confused, they don't know what's happening, your business is not going to operate efficiently. Okay. Conflict management through third parties. Now, you know this already. The CCMA settles labor disputes in the workplace. So if there's conflict in the workplace, that conflict can end up being taken to the CCMA. If you don't deal with it in the workplace, the staff may take it to the CCMA. The workplace forums, they don't take over what trade unions and the CCMA does, but it simply allows staff to come together in one place. Doesn't matter on their position in the business, from forecourt sweeper to the site manager at your petrol station. They all come together to discuss something that is of mutual interest. So it's something that affects everybody. And I think I discussed this with you yesterday already as well, where you start talking about changing shifts. If you change a shift in the workplace, that workplace forum is a good place to discuss that because it affects everybody. Employees organizations, this is something now, we talk about trade unions and labor unions that help employees against employers who are being unfair. Now you have the employers organizations where they back up the employer in the case where trade unions are taking on the employer. The employer can go to the employers organization for assistance. The employers organization also helps them draw up plans, come up with solutions, procedures, that kind of thing. If the employer or the owner of the business isn't quite so au fait with those policies and procedures. So assisting with employment contracts. So if you're opening a business for the first time and you actually don't know what you're doing, really, the employers organization is going to help you draw up an employment contract for different aspects of your business. Disciplinary and grievance procedures, dispute resolutions, they'll help with all those types of things. If you need to go to the CCMA, when you were at the CCMA last year, you'll see that trade unions were there representing the employees, but you didn't often see employers there with an employer organization assisting. Now that's because employers generally don't really know that employers organizations are there to assist them. If they are aware of it and they need that assistance, they'll make use of it. And then trade unions play a role in reducing and handling of conflict between employers and employees. Now, I know that is not necessarily always the case in South Africa today. We see a lot of trade unions encouraging employees to go on strike, encouraging employees to show their unhappiness towards the employer. So they don't really fit the mold of what their intention is. Their intention is to reduce conflict between employers and employees. And we don't necessarily see that. So in your matric exam, if the question comes up, what is the role of a trade union? The role is to reduce conflict and to enhance a positive relationship between employer and employee. Okay, that is your exam response. It might not necessarily be what happens in real life. Okay. Conflict of interest. I'm going to stop at this conflict of interest because I'm guessing that there's going to be a couple of questions when I stop showing this presentation. And there's a couple more slides as well on different aspects of conflict and what can cause conflict. And some of them can lead to some pretty big discussions. So I'm going to stop at conflict of interest after this slide. A conflict of interest occurs when an individual organization is involved in multiple interests, one of which could possibly corrupt the motivation for an act in the other. A conflict of interest can be discovered and voluntarily diffused before any corruption occurs. A further problem may arise should any of the directors hold shares in two or more companies that are in opposition of each other. So if you look at a director, now a general shareholder, just an ordinary member of the public, can have shares in Sasol and shares in Shell and shares in Engen. That's fine. But when you're a director in Sasol and you have a majority share in Shell, that is a conflict of interest, because a director has the ability to make decisions on what the company does. And if he's got majority share in another company, his decisions could affect his profits, his share profits in the other company. And that is why it is a conflict of interest. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now so I can see if you guys have any questions. Okay, I see there's a few more people who have entered. All right, guys, are there any questions? Do any of you have any questions for me on what we've done?
No, sir.
None. There we go.
No, I
I
don't
see
have
one.
any.
None. Lizandi, none. Type it into the little bar on the side, the chat bar on the side if you've got a question. But yes, guys, that's generally the short little lesson that I wanted to do with you today. But if you've got questions, like I said, ask. I see most of you have got your oh no, you don't. I thought most of you had your microphones on. Libs.
So just out of curiosity, were you going to be doing these live lessons every day? Or?
That was a question that was asked earlier. I'll answer it again now. No, I'm not. This, for example, on Friday, we're not going to have a live lesson. It's going to be something that's posted for you guys to go through by yourselves, but I will be accessible via Google Meet if you need.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions on the work we've done more specifically, guys?
No, sir.
No. Yes. Luke, did you have a question?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So then what I'm going to ask you to do, based on what we've done, guys, we've spoken about things that can lead to conflict. What I want you to do is I want you to find an article, specifically in the petrol industry, if you can. Find an article where there has been conflict in the workplace and conflict between the petrol station employees and the managers. It can be with a company as well. It could be conflict with a motorist or a customer and the petrol station. You'll find blogs, you'll find complaints, Hello Peter, those kinds of things is where you'll find some complaints. So I want you to go and find a conflict situation, and then I want you to tell me how you would have solved that or how you would have addressed it as an owner. Okay, that's what I want you to work on. Then I also want you to go and link conflict to something from your business environments. So where would conflict fit in business environments? Is it a micro, market, or macro issue? If you say it's a macro issue, where under Pestle will it fit? And draw that link so that when you're answering an essay type question, you automatically have that link and it's natural for you to respond to that type of question. Okay, it doesn't have to be, thank you, Eddie. The question doesn't have to be about petrol industry. Obviously, it's going to benefit you if it is, so try and find something. But if you're struggling with that, then it doesn't matter. Any scenario that you can apply to a petrol industry, because we can quite easily in the test create a scenario, make it up, thumbsucker scenario, put it into your test and you need to say how you would address it. So any scenario, but obviously beneficial if it's the petrol industry.
So,
Pleasure, Eddie. Yes, Espen.
so where did you say you had to go to find these grievances online?
Anywhere online. Any news article, a blog, anything.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
None?
No, sir.
Okay, if you've got no other questions, then I'm happy for you guys to log off and get started. You've also, remember, you've still got your research project that you can finish off with. I said to you by about Thursday, which is tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to start expecting to see those submissions coming in. I have already got a couple. I did put the Turnitin submission on Moodle for you. For those of you that have logged on, you would have seen that. Just submitted via the Turnitin hand-in option on Moodle. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
If you don't have a
Thank you,
question,
sir.
Thank you.
pleasure. If you don't have a question, you can log off. Pleasure.
Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Bye, sir.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Sir,
Yes, yes.
I just want to. I sent you, what to call it, sometime during the holiday. I forgot what it. Yeah, my research. I sent you my research sometime during the holiday. Have you had time to check it? So I just wanted to
Is
get
that
feedback.
that was via email?
Yes. So
Okay. Just give me a second here, Espen. I'm just gonna. Email address did you send it from, Espen?
my school email address. It should be from my school one.
From school email address. Got one here. Are students allowed to come to school to work in the library during the day? No, I haven't got it, Espen.
Okay, I'm just going to check it now.
When did you send it? What date do you remember?
The 22nd of April.
22nd of April. No, let me check my junk mail.
Okay, then I followed up on it on the 28th.
What's your school email address?
20 Espen.
20 Espen. Yes, yeah, I see it. Okay. Espen, I'll have a quick look at it, but remember what I said. If you submit it and I see that changes need to be made, etc., you still have another opportunity to go and fix it for a final mark as well.
Okay, but will that still be for the report?
It will at this stage, Espen, but it just depends on how much time we've got to go away and fix it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, let me see if I've got a little bit of time to go and edit it. If I haven't responded to you, let me get you back on screen here. If I haven't responded to you with an editing or suggestions for it by tomorrow morning, then submit it as it is, and then I'll mark it as is, and then, as I said, send it back to you with comments, and then you can resubmit later for marks. And if we can do it quick enough, then we can still change it for a return mark.
Okay.
Okay. But I'll see if I've got a bit of time to have a look and edit it this morning sometime, or rather this afternoon sometime because it's nearly lunch.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it,
bye-bye,
Desmond?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, goodbye.
Bye-bye.